The Seattle Kraken made history winning their first ever playoff series, upsetting the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche in 7 games. Erica Ayala of Locked On Kraken joins us to discuss how they pulled off the upset and what their prospects are going forward next on the road to the Stanley Cup. Gil Martin here. The Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup continues as we welcome in Erica Ayala of Locked On Kraken to talk about Seattle's big playoff upset as they advance to round 2 and their chances to make a deep playoff run. And Erica, big series, first ever playoff series win. What was the biggest reason that the Kraken were able to pull off the upset over the defending Stanley Cup champions?
Well, I think it's simply put, Philipp Grubauer. And that can be taken a few different ways. I think he had a fantastic Game 7 for sure. But what I appreciated the most about watching Philipp Grubauer is that for the first time in a Seattle Kraken uniform, we saw that consistency that really got him to the contract that he has with the Seattle Kraken. Now, the first season was a lot of growing pains across the board throughout the roster. Then earlier this season, Philipp Grubauer was looking good against Colorado, no less. Then he got injured and had to make his way back. But to see Philipp Grubauer confident, to see him communicating with his team, to see the team rallying behind his performances, that was amazing to see.
And who would you say was the series MVP for the Kraken?
Well, again, I think probably the obvious answer is Philipp Grubauer. I do think that he had the most consistency in his performance. But if I had to really give an MVP most valuable, particularly considering the way that the Seattle Kraken want to play, it might be a two-way race between Eeli Tolvanen and Yanni Gourde. They were really bought in to being defensive players. They were the most consistent when it came to winning 50-50 battles. Matty Beniers always plays that way, so I might be shirking him a little bit here because that's what I expect of him. He had difficulties in other ways, but those 2-3 players I think were most valuable in that they kept what made us successful a part of their game every single game.
So was there a potential weakness that was exposed against the Avs that needs to be addressed heading into round 2?
I think what we saw from Seattle are things that are not so surprising to those of us like myself who watch their games regularly. But if you haven't had the honor and pleasure, the Seattle Kraken have had difficulty on special teams. Now, what we liked in the series against Colorado is that they really focused on the penalty kill. That was a point of emphasis, and I think quite honestly of pride for the Seattle Kraken. Now it's time to see if that power play can be something that becomes productive and something that can boon their offense. But that wasn't the case during the regular season for the majority of the regular season, and it certainly wasn't the case against Colorado.
Is there one player you think who could be the catalyst to get the power play going?
Well, sure. Unfortunately, he's out with an undisclosed injury. Jared McCann, for sure, is a player that I would have loved to see more impact, not just the power play. Quite honestly, he is our top scorer and plays top minutes on both the power play and the penalty kill. But if I had to say, that's where I think Eeli Tolvanen can step up there. I think you also saw Justin Schultz step up, quarterbacking that, but then also just being a puck-moving defenseman for us. But I would say if we're talking about the offensive productivity on the power play, I want to see Eeli Tolvanen really step up.
All right, so how does this series win change the long-term outlook of the Kraken? Is this playoff run now considered a success, or is there more work that needs to be done?
I think it's both. I feel like that's how I answered this question before, or when people ask what is the mentality going into the playoffs, right? Before we played any games against Colorado, are we happy to be here, or or are we setting precedent? And it's really both, because we've never done this before. And I think for the Seattle Kraken, what this means for the future, and I think what I hope it means for the future, is that teams can see that we are about that life. We are here to play hockey, and we are doing it in a way where everyone is buying in. I keep using the term by committee. The Seattle Kraken won the series by committee. Every player contributing. We didn't have one player scoring 6 goals. We didn't have the top line scoring all of our goals, which ended up being the demise, at least in our series, for Colorado. Everyone scoring, stepping up. Daniel Sprong, a 4th liner, stepping up. And so I hope what this means for us in our future is that players that want to play that way, and players who maybe have wanted teammates who will play that way in free agency, and certainly as they're drafted, they will see this run in the playoffs, however long it may last, Gil, and they know that this is how the Seattle Kraken play hockey. And I do think that we will get a Stanley Cup sooner rather than later if we can commit to that way.
Sort of creating the brand in a way.
Exactly.
Erica, thank you so much. That does it for our Kraken review of round 1 and look ahead here on the Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup. Be sure to subscribe to or follow Locked On Kraken for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.